Catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.
So we were at the Global AI Summit in Kigali, Rwanda, and I came across the name of my guest today, Professor Emeka Oguzie. And, I was a bit stunned because most of the event I'd attended in Nigeria before now. I don't think I'd ever met, someone in the academia, in the regular tech event spaces up until now, when it's not exactly an event that is organized within the academic space. So, and also, yes, Professor Emeka Oguzie, his surname is, like the surname from my maternal side. So I was also curious, to meet him and, connecting with him. So this conversation today, this episode of the podcast today would be with Professor Emeka Oguzie. He's the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research, Development and Innovation, Federal University of Technology, Owerri, Nigeria. And also the Center Leader, Africa Center of Excellence in Future Energies and Electrochemical Systems, ACE-FUELS. Welcome. It's morning here. So good morning, Professor. Good morning, Prof.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to speak with you here and to be on your podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you here. And we'll start with sharing a bit about your current responsibilities as Deputy Vice Chancellor at FUTO, that's Federal University of Technology, Owerri, and your role as Center Leader, ACE-FUELS.
Thank you. So, the DVC for Research, Development and Innovation at FUTO. My duty is to provide strategic leadership in shaping the university's research agenda and then promoting innovation-driven education. I also oversee postgraduate level research and development. Again, I'm also at the forefront of the university's engagement and the university's search for partnerships and collaborations to enhance our research capacity. We have what we call the FUTO Research Enterprise, which is under my office. That system also oversees everything in terms of research in the university. So then at ACE-FUELS, we are center leader. We set up that ACE-FUELS in 2019 in response to the World Bank call for establishment of centers of excellence to address Africa's developmental challenges. So we identified energy or lack of access to energy in Africa as a key challenge, and we looked at a proposal to set up a center to provide training, because we also identified that Africa has an abundance of energy resources. Nigeria, for instance, has an abundance of petroleum resources, right? Of solar resources, of wind, and etc. So our problem is not having the resources. Our problem has always been having the skilled manpower, the expertise to, effectively exploit these resources. Let's give an example with the oil and gas sector. When oil was discovered in Nigeria, we had to outsource everything that had to do with that sector to multinational. And they brought in the expatriates and did everything just to make Nigerians, right? So now we have upon us the energy transition towards renewables. Again, we have an abundance of renewable sources. We are not strategic this time. We are not intentional this time, but also have to outsource it, foreign companies to come and run the sector for us. We set up ACE-FUELS to train Nigerians, train Africans to be able to positively exploit our energy resources. So my duty as center leader is to coordinate the center, all the center activities, the courses, the MSc and the PhD courses we have, 5 of them, 5 different programs, as well as the short courses. Also, by our mandate, we are required to collaborate with a wide range of international collaborators from the region, from Africa and from beyond. So it's also my duty to coordinate that. And it's also my duty to set up facilities, because the World Bank Center comes with some funds which we never had before. So we're trying to use those funds to set up the kind of laboratory and facilities we always dreamed of and never had before. So that's what we are doing now.
That's really interesting. That's a lot of work to have on, your table. How have you been managing, that amount of work and the amount of responsibility that's, on your shoulders?
Well, interestingly, both jobs are, let's say, symbiotic. They feed off each other, right? So the funding and the exposure from the World Bank Center has been very, very useful and very, very impactful in my role as EVC research, right? The connections, the facilities we put in place is for the entire university, for instance. So the university now, we have the best laboratory, the best classroom and reading spaces, and the spaces and the facilities are open to the entire university community. And also in coordinating the research at the center, in managing our partners, in cultivating new partnerships. The focus is on the center, but the impact is felt across the entire university. So it's been challenging, but more than challenging, it's been interesting, because this is what we've always wanted to do. The problem of university system in Nigeria and in most African countries is always funding. So we have been able to address that to an extent, and there's a lot of joy in having resources to do what you have in mind. So I don't see it as a big challenge. I see it as something interesting and exciting to do. So it hasn't been too difficult to coordinate here.
Okay. Positive. What insights or trends from the Global AI Summit for Africa, the one that was held in Kigali, what key insights or trends do you think are most important for you and for the academia and maybe higher institutions?
For me, firstly, I was very happy and excited to see the level of activity I saw in Kigali around AI. It's coming from an environment where there is insufficient motivation and people are not encouraged to reach their limits, to exploit their limits. It's quite interesting to see the number of people I met in Kigali, and to see the focus and the interest. There were several ministers, several government officials from all over Africa there. All of them, those that spoke, sounding the same, positive and encouraging Africa to adopt AI, because we must begin as Africa to be at the forefront of any emerging technology. We don't have to be on the outside. One reason why I went for that event was to motivate myself further, right? Because our vision in ACE-FUELS and in FUTO now is to mainstream AI across all our academic disciplines, and to ensure that every student in every field acquires foundational knowledge in AI and data literacy. So for instance, in ACE-FUELS, which is a smaller ecosystem to coordinate, we have developed an AI integration policy into our research, into our education and into our administration. We developed the policy, we've shared it with the staff and students, right? And the first thing we did was to identify these foundational courses, the free ones, the free online courses, introductory courses to AI, which we've made a compulsory requirement for students across all our courses to take those courses and to get the certifications as part of the requirements for them to get the degrees they enrolled for. We've also identified courses for faculty, for researchers, to introduce them to AI and to begin to help them begin to implement AI in their interaction with students. Because the AI thing is quite interesting. So it's very important for us. For instance, our center is, I'm a chemist, I'm a materials chemist, right? And ACE-FUELS, we are engaging in energy research from an energy materials perspective, developing materials for solar cells, materials for batteries, materials for fuel cells, and for other storage devices, supercapacitors. And a lot of the developments and innovation we want to do in this area will benefit immensely from AI-based simulations and predictive analytics and such things. So I was happy, for instance, to hear from the Econet guy at Kigali that they acquired some large data centers that they put in Africa and make it accessible to all Africans to send in their computations. That will help us a lot, because the software we use for simulations require that kind of data capacity. So my charge to African higher institutions is to begin now to integrate AI, right, in their teaching, in this engagement with students, in research, and even in administration, right, so that we can, within the next short, mid to long term, we can build a generation of scholars and innovators who can apply AI meaningfully to address African challenges in different sectors. One of the key takeaways for me from that event was the talk or a speech by one of the ministers from Kenya on Africa's immense youth population and everybody's dream to see the young people go into agriculture. He made a very vital observation. He said that most young people in Africa now have become tech savvy, right? They're very familiar, very used to IT devices, and those people are it's not going to be very possible to make them to go to the farms and start to use hoes and shovels and diggers for agriculture. That the best way to integrate African youth into agriculture was to grow the technology in agriculture and make agriculture tech-based. And that way we will attract more young people into the sector. This is one thing that can also apply to different areas, different sectors where we have challenges. So having national and regional AI adoption strategies is one way to equip young people in Africa to engage and provide service in the different sectors where we have developmental challenges. So it's something that every university and every institution should begin to adopt. Thank you.
You spoke about integrating AI into both administrative, research and, other areas of academics. Could you give maybe an example of how FUTO is implementing this or plans to implement this?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, first is to make it compulsory for students from all disciplines to take foundational courses in AI, right? For me, for a long time, I used to think that AI was something for those in ICT. I wasn't too keen on that, right? Until I got just decided to dive in. And I think it blew my mind that how much I as a chemist, as a material scientist could do with AI in terms of research and in terms of even student engagement, right? So we've registered, we've subscribed for different AI services at the center. And we are having a lot of, our students are taking courses. And the university is partnering with several organizations to provide AI awareness courses for our students. We have an ongoing partnership with a company in Lagos, the SAC Technologies in Lagos, to establish an AI experience center right here in FUTO. We have signed an MOU in this regard, and they're scheduled to host an entrepreneurship week in FUTO in July. And during that entrepreneurship week, we will launch the AI experience center and provide the needed dissemination and information sharing for the university community to be aware of this and to key into it. One big problem you have has always been information dissemination, right? I always believe that the amount of time people spend on social media, if some of that time is spent on things like AI and AI applications, there will be a lot of benefits for the individual and for society. Thank you.
Okay. And could you speak to the programs? Like there are some solutions that you mentioned when we're talking the last time. Can you talk a bit more about those solutions and maybe speak a little bit more about the partnership with eDrive too?
So at a center level, for instance, I mentioned that we are material science center basically, right? So we have a number of software solutions that we use for different things, for new materials discovery and new materials characterization, new materials exploitation, and materials functionality. So all of this, in the past, for every new material you want to develop, everything has to be done experimentally, and that always prolongs the time from the discovery to the demonstration of those new technologies, right? But with this software like Material Studio and stuff like that, we can, on the computer, right there in a matter of 1 or 2 hours, we can design a new material. We can test it, we can characterize it to know the features it has, if it has those features that are required for particular applications. We can also test the material in those applications by different kinds of simulation. And always the match between the simulations and the experimental results are not too wide. So AI in this regard, technology and the software have enabled us to accelerate the rate of materials discovery and the rate of development of new materials for both existing and new applications. For instance, we have an ongoing project. We got a grant with the Swansea University in the UK and some other partners on a UK research and innovation project. We got a grant to develop next generation solar cells that are adaptable and suitable for design and manufacture in Africa. That whole project is anchored on us in FUTO. We are trying very hard to put the required facilities in place. And our target is that by the first quarter of next year, we would have produced our first indigenously designed and developed solar modules. These next generation solar cells are not based on the normal silicon technology. This is based on the technology of organic solar cells based on materials called perovskites. So, and the initial work we've done in this area has been entirely computational work to identify what features we need to inculcate in those materials to give them the properties we desire. That's a very big leap forward for us as a center, as a university, to be the arrowhead of ongoing initiatives to develop next generation solar cells that can be handled in Africa using African resources and African expertise. Thank you.
For those who may not understand, the whole idea is it's converting sunlight power, for electricity, right? And this
that conversion of solar radiation to electricity. There are several interactions that are involved, right? There are several interactions, several steps that are involved. So using computational tools, we can bring out each of these steps and look at each of those steps and those interactions at the atomic level, at the level of atoms, which is very important, so that we know exactly how each material behaves, and we also find out what is responsible for either the good performance or poor performance of materials after production. So we're starting from the basic level of the material, the atom level, the electrons level, to probe their interactions with sunlight, for instance. Right? So at the end of it, we will more like galvanize those the positive interactions that will give us better energy production. And we now start to build on those interactions start to develop them at the higher level, up to the materials level and up to the device level. That's what we are doing with computations now. So this will, to a large extent, reduce the number of experimental runs we have to do. That also reduces the time to achieve your aim, and also reduces the amount of money you spend in experimental activities.
Wow. Okay, this is really good in terms of steps towards renewable energy. That when we look at what is available here, indigenous manufacturing, it's like really, really beautiful. And you're just one of 3 other universities across the continent that got selected to participate in this research, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is really beautiful. So let's talk about partnerships. A little bit about partnerships. When we look at initiatives and partnerships, what kind of collaborators or partnerships are you looking to forge? And what would be the most important for you in terms of actually forging these initiatives and partnerships? We might have, partners that would listen to this podcast episode. So talk more about like the kind of partners you're looking to onboard and the kind of partnerships and initiatives that would be really interesting for ACE-FUELS and for FUTO.
Oh, yeah, that's a good perspective, right? A good question. So there are different kinds of partnerships, right? So now we have this center. There are 17 centers of excellence in Nigeria now. All of them have been well funded over the past 5 years, and they've really established good facilities for research and for training and good courses. Very contemporary courses and programs. But the problems of most of us centers has been low student enrollment. So we have these centers in Africa, in Nigeria now. We have opportunities to do world-class learning and research in Nigeria. they're having problem getting people to key in, right? The main challenge has always been funding. In other countries, the postgraduate training in most countries is not, the students don't pay out of pocket. There are agencies and organizations that provide support for students, to go into postgraduate courses, because the main function of a university, apart from teaching and learning, is research. That is what differentiates a university from other higher institutions. Doing research that is impactful. And for research to be impactful, it has to influence the academia. People have to use it. The colleagues have to use it. It has to influence society. It has to influence industry. It has to influence government policy. So societies that understand the importance of research and the tight relationship between research development and economic development, they provide funds for students to learn and to research. They give targets to those students. But here you have Nigerian students that they are doing the master's course and they are working somewhere, or they are looking for jobs, or they are hustling somewhere. So there's a big distraction, and under such situations, the students cannot give in their best. So we need partners to fund students, to challenge young Nigerian students and provide funding for them to study, to do research, and to innovate. That's one class of partnership we need. There's also the partnership amongst Nigerian institutions. The last time I said something about in Igbo land, there's something we say that that is, you have to look good at home first before you look good outside. So for you to look good outside, good enough outside to attract collaborators, means you have properly established yourself, right? And many Nigerian institutions have a challenge with that because there is no funding, or there's very limited funding for research. So most of our collaborations have been not really parasitic, right? But what we've always contributed in those collaborations have been our native intelligence and knowledge. We don't often contribute facilities and finances. So that limits the kind of partnerships we have. We can engage in limits us to those partners that have funds to share with us, to get the new knowledge, right? But that is why most times partnership between Nigerian institutions, between African institutions is not too pronounced, because all of us are looking for the same thing. All of us are looking out for those partners that can provide resources and funding for people, right? So, but now because of the World Bank project we have, and because of the funding they provided, we created our own facilities, world-class training, world-class research facilities in our areas of interest. So now we can have partnerships based on some form of on equal terms. You bring this, you can contribute something, we can contribute something, then we work together. So that's the third kind of partnership we're looking for. We set up a good facility now for solar cell research, set up a good facility for battery research. We've set up a good general purpose research laboratory. We can do all sorts of things now. So we have to now start to look for those that can engage us so that we can use those facilities positively. And in this way, contribute to the development of the country. And the last kind of partnership will be industry partnership, right? There is very minimal industry academia collaboration in Nigeria. And the one reason for that is that the industries know we don't have enough facilities. So they mostly outsource their R&D to their partners outside the country. So we need to now start to reach out to those industries to tell them that, look, we have facilities now. So the government, it's funny. It's funny, right? So the government, for instance, for our center, the Nigerian government has taken a loan of $6 million for our data center. The same thing for the other centers in Nigeria. If you do $6 million times 17, that tells you how much the government has put into postgraduate training in Nigeria. So we have a center of excellence in energy, and the government has several energy projects that they're doing. We're not part of any of them, right? So right here in FUTO, for instance, there is FUTO benefited from this renewable energy agency's energizing education program. So across from our center facility, there is an 8.3 megawatt hybrid solar station being constructed for FUTO. And we are not even part of it. It's a center of excellence in energy, right? So those kind of things don't really make sense. So whether it's an issue of suspicion or issue of lack of trust. But there is no, the government needs to know who and who, and what people are doing, and have to be able to integrate government projects in those areas with what centers are doing, what the universities are doing. That happens a lot in China. One time we went to China, my visit in 2017. If you look at the published literature on oil spill remediation, for instance, using biomaterials, I think Nigeria is number one in that area globally in terms of quantum of publications we bring out, right? But all that publications, all that innovation end up in shelves. We went to Chinese university doing the same kind of work. So I'll give an example. We might use cassava peels to remediate oil spill. In China, they were using potato peels for their own. They took us to their warehouse where they had bagged these potato peels and told us that the government has given them a site to remediate. So they have been improving upon their own. Interestingly, during the organic cleanup, they had a high prep project. I did a proposal to the Minister of Environment, to that high prep committee. I said, let us create a test site in that spill zone. Let us start to test let us create a site where Nigerian academics and researchers can come to test and demonstrate their innovations in oil spill cleanup. That if we do this for 2, 3, 4 years, we can start to develop our own technology. They didn't buy the idea. But the key requirements in those applications was that you must have a foreign partner. So all partnerships are very important for us, for us to demonstrate what we can do, and for us and to engage our people too. So that the research we do doesn't just rest on shelves in the libraries, so that the thing can be practicalized and tried out severally and improved. That's where we start to have our own homegrown solutions and homegrown innovation. Thank you.
That's very, very interesting and very insightful too. And maybe one other reason might just be the harmony that happens, or that's supposed to happen when these decisions are taken at different levels of government. And that's just my thoughts when you were speaking, that it's possible that it might be a different agency that handles funding for these excellence centers, and a totally different agency is handling some certain projects. But then that harmony for both agencies to come together to say, you have the Center of Excellence as an energy. We have a project we're running, that has to do with maybe a constituency project or something that has to do with funding renewable energy projects. Why can't we work together? And this just speaks to harmony across both industry and research and academia and the education sector. It's really, really important. And I think I also would want to use this, at this point, to actually call on industry players. Most of the economies that developed did not just develop with just one side. It's complementary, industry and academia and research side by side. So, the CEPLAT, the flour mills of Nigeria, the GT Co, and all Dangote Group, all of these major Innocent, all of these major industry players should actually look towards research institutions, excellence centers like yours, and the academia, because that's really the only way we're going to grow indigenously and grow sustainably.
You're very correct. The problem is this lack of inter-agency cooperation and collaborations. Everybody wants to be on their own. People like to protect their interests. So that's a big challenge, and that's at the top level, at the federal government level. Right, so you're very right in calling for more collaboration. I know, for instance, there was an attempt when Bunayano was Minister of Science, the attempt to align universities of technology, the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology, an attempt to align universities of agriculture, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. He mentioned that, and there was a lot of backlash. So people have to protect, and people are not very comfortable with trying new things. But when what is in existence is not serving us the way we need, so we have to keep trying new things until we get the right formula. So I agree with you. There has to be more collaboration. The Ministry of Science and Technology has to know what is happening in the University of Technology. Ministry of Agri needs to know that. So now even many initiators of this idea of University of Technology, University of Agriculture, they had good intentions, right? But those things have not been followed through. The support and the and the engagements needed to drive these universities, these specialized universities, have not been forthcoming. So you are seeing many universities of technology now converting to conventional universities. And the reason for that is simply so that they can do more courses and have more students and get more income. So the initial dreams, the initial plans of the initiators and the founders have all been defeated because of lack of engagement and support. So it's good to let them know, because there has to be collaboration across all sectors for us to start to address the problems we have in this country. Our problems are not insurmountable. We've not shown the required depth and the required intentionality to address those problems. Just paying lip service to them. So they linger. Thank you.
Okay. You shared a story when we were on a call before about the domain of the university being suspended for a short while on suspicion of, spamming by students using the university domain email. I would like to hear what your thoughts are about privacy, about ethics and responsible development and use of tech, just as we move into the era of AI. And I'm asking this because as the DVC, for research, development and innovation, things that have to do with, research and innovation, are we thinking of privacy? Are we thinking of ethics? Are we thinking of responsible use? And also as these, technologies, in the future energies and electrochemical systems, you've talked about a couple of grants that has been gotten for, certain projects. Are you thinking and are you supervising in your supervision? Is there the conversation about ethics and privacy and responsible development and use of, these technologies?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's another very interesting question. So if you remember in Kigali, when the Rwandan president was speaking about cybersecurity, he mentioned something about how dangerous it would be if AI became very much embedded in politics without control, right? So the key point here now is control, because once something like this, like AI, is available in the public, people are going to use it firstly for personal gain, right? So that's where control, that's where the policies have to be well defined and strictly implemented, And again, if we as a country we adopt or we identify focus areas, initial focus areas for AI application, for instance, and we start to provide support and resources in that area, then people will start to become positively engaged with AI in those areas. That's very important. So for us in FUTO, we have a university research policy, we have a data policy, we have a research ethics, and we have an institutional review board and all sorts of things. But we've not developed policies that are based strictly on AI. And we are working on that now, because now we are beginning to pursue AI integration. With that same effort, we also have to start to put in place, the ethical guidelines, the policies, and the security is needed. Luckily for us in FUTO, for instance, we have a School of Information and Computing Technologies. We have a Department of Cybersecurity that has received a lot of support from the federal government, from the Nigerian Communications Commission, right? So we have all these things, and we are now sitting down with them, Director of ICT, Director of University Computer Center, and other experts in the area to develop policies that will guide the responsible use of AI and other technologies. It's very important we do that. Last time I was telling you, I gave an example of the need for government to have focus areas, priority areas to engage people across all sectors. You can't just be doing things without guidance. In the US, for instance, each US president has a policy that clearly states the focus of that government, right? From Obama to Clinton, the Material Genome Initiative, the Nanotechnology Initiative. Governments have to set their targets, their areas of interest, and then put funds there to attract both academia and industry to work in those areas. So for this AI, very important that we set targets and application areas that government will support, so that more people can focus on those areas. Then you have fewer people that are playing tricks with that. And the systems in place will be used to comment. But if you leave it open, people do as you like, there's no focus, there's no guidance, there's no incentive for any particular area, we'll keep playing. So for us, we are actively integrating responsible technology use in our university now because of the. I also mentioned initially that for most of us that are lecturers, when you say AI, we see it as a tool students use to cheat an exam, right? And also when when the students hear AI, they see it as a tool they can use to manipulate the system and have their way. So nowadays, if you give assignment to students, all 100% AI generated, right? Then people will shout. It is okay. So now what we do in our center is we give you an assignment, you write it, we encourage you to use AI to write it, right? Then you come and present it to us orally, develop your slides and present to us orally and tell us the AI perspective. If you, on your own personal perspective, do you agree, do you disagree? So we should start to permit AI and then encourage students to use AI. I also mentioned last time that when we are in secondary school doing WAEC and JAM in the 80s, it was an illegality to be seen with a calculator in advanced mathematics classes and exams. We are all supposed to use four-figure tables, right? That was turning back the hands of the clock because the calculator, the scientific calculators were in existence then, and they were there to help students to develop faster. So the same thing with AI. AI should be seen as a tool to help students develop faster, to help students, Nigerians, both students and all of us in Nigeria, we have a problem of a laziness and an unwillingness to interrogate issues. Anything we hear, we believe. We don't have the strength to question it and to see if it's true or not. So we should create the environment for AI to thrive, and we should set the ground rules. Right? Apart from that, also there should be very clearly and visibly obvious sanctions to defaulters. That's again what Nigeria is not very good at sanctioning people. So once these things are in place, it should be good to go. Thank you.
Okay, it's a good thing that the university already has a policy and it's really forward thinking. And the next step would be, the one that has to do with AI more. Now, in your final thoughts, I want you to share benefits, first of all, to students who should and can enroll to the FUTO, for example, University of Technology, and ACE-FUELS, right? I want you to, in your final thoughts, share the kind of benefits that they would get from enrolling, both something that is much more futuristic and, would help advance themselves and their career, because this actually speaks to the low enrollment that you spoke about. Maybe if they have an idea of how, what the benefits are, it would actually push for more enrollment. Then second, in your final thoughts, I want you to speak to industry partners and stakeholders, both from the government and the private sector, about the benefits and how important it is, to work with centers of excellence like yours, researchers, like you and the academia. And then share any other final thoughts you'd want to share as we wrap up, this particular conversation.
Thank you very much. So the first question has to do with what do students stand to gain, right? So at the start of our center's programs, we offered full scholarships to students from Nigeria and from African countries. Full scholarships, we give them a stipend, right, for living. We fund their research, and we ensure that they do all their researches focused on topics that we can achieve in our lab, in our facilities, right? And why we do all this is that the center, the World Bank project that funds our center, our funding is we have to earn the funds. It's a results-based financial model where we have set milestones and results that we have to achieve, which will be verified, and then we earn our money from that. So all of these are things. So, but we found out, for instance, that when we give students full scholarship, there's no commitment. So some of them just walk in there, spend a few weeks and just walk out. That's one thing we observed, right? Secondly is that when the students heard it was World Bank funded, they are making demands. Some of them were asking for stipends that exceeded even the professor's salary and stuff like that, right? I wish we could provide that, but it's not part of our mandate. So we give all these incentives. Then also we have the chance, if you are with us, you are mandated to present your research findings in conferences, national and regional conferences, which we fund the students to attend. right? So all of these are things we put in place to encourage student participation. We expose them to our international academic partners. You have co-supervision from different places. So many of our students now, those that have finished, for instance, masters with us, they're all outside abroad doing their PhDs, most of them. Those that have done PhDs with us are all outside doing their postdoc. These are incentives we put in place. The more importantly is that the students have the chance to do real world-class research that has the potential to address problems. One thing we found out, though, is maybe we are not reaching out sufficiently. For instance, after our admissions this year, we had our board meeting to look at the admission list. We had only 3 female students enrolled into our program. It was crazy. So we now made an effort to try to increase female enrollments. We now reached out to a female rights NGO. We reached out to one of them and we engaged with them, and they took our case. They started doing radio programs trying to encourage females to join, that there were scholarships available. They took our case to the Imo State House of Assembly, for instance, and got some of the honorable members to convince their female constituents to come for these scholarships. And the thing actually worked, so that within 2 weeks, we had 60 new applications from females, out of which we admitted, about 35 of them that were qualified. So that made us start thinking that maybe we are reaching out the academic way. We need to start to think outside the box in terms of how to make this outreach, how to engage with students. But more importantly, we need going to your next questions. We are kind of last, after the Rwanda trip, I went to Ghana for a meeting too, and I made a presentation. And I say that we have successfully created a center of excellence in FUTO and ACE-FUELS. We have that center of excellence now. But that is not enough, right? We need to upgrade it to an ecosystem of excellence. What we have at ACE-FUELS now is just the classrooms, the offices, the laboratory. There is no hostel accommodation there. There is no guest house. So the students, they come, they do excellence. By 5 o'clock, they go back to where they came from. Go back to the hostel and mix with also as students. So countries that are serious about these things, they carve out that ecosystem, put the hostel, put the guest house, put everything in that community and fence it off. So the people there will be there and they know they have an assignment. They will deliver. So we need to get partners that will support us, right? To have a lot of land. All around us there is empty land. Support us and get us a hostel, for instance, where our students can just walk in and walk back. We need a guest house. We are supposed to be hosting a lot of foreign partners very soon. And I'm worried about it because of the large challenge we have with security in Nigeria. Having to move them from FUTO as a university has accommodation, so we all come from town. Right? But it would be nice if we have guest houses right there at the center there, where our visitors will just stay there, right? Have a good food, hanging out place that they can always walk in and out of the lab and do the work they're supposed to do. So we need collaborators, we need partners to help us to upgrade from a center of excellence to an ecosystem of excellence. So that then we need government, we need industry to challenge us, give us an assignment. We've had some engagement with industries, which I think is always, for me, it's funny sometimes. When they come and they give you money for research, they tell you they want a product in 6 months, want a product in 1 year. I tell them immediately that it's not the way we do research. Product development is not an automatic process. There are procedures for that. Right? So those that are already engaging with the universities have to spend some time and probably also recruit some researchers to advise them properly, right? Because there is a mindset for research, there is a way research is done. So you cannot just come from private sector and you dictate the pace of research. You don't understand it, right? So that's really a problem. So those are the, I think I've answered the question. So in terms of a call, I've said before, people should challenge us. You don't have to be waiting for grand challenges from the UK, from the US for us to compete and get projects and implement them. Let us also get those grand challenges from Nigerian entities. I know TED Fund is doing a lot already. in terms of research funding, and they are trying to do more. But other agencies should adopt the research fund model and also try to do the same thing. Last time I went to an army conference, and the soldiers there were asking us why we are not developing things for the army. I will use my money to develop things for the army. So first, before you ask us to develop things for the military, first you partner with us and tell us what challenges you have. So we can start working on that together. So we need to close the gap, and we need to be open about it without any slyness or any inhibitions. Sometimes you go to talk to people, they see you as a beggar for money, right? I don't blame them. We don't have money to in the system. It should be beyond that. Thank you.
Really, really important point. And I think the closing for me would be something you said just at the end. We need to be honest when we have these conversations, and we also need to close the gap. We need to really close that gap. The gap that happens in interaction between research, academia, and industry itself. We need to do that across board. It's really, really important if we're going to have any form of sustainable development. Thank you so much for your time. I've been speaking to the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research, Development and Innovation, Federal University of Technology, FUTOwerre, FUTO, and he's also the center leader at the Africa Center of Excellence in Future Energies and Electrochemical Systems called ACE-FUELS, also in FUTOwerre, Nigeria. Professor Emeka Oguzie, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you dedicating this time, and I really, really hope that this would be, one in the steps that would take us closer to closing that gap between research and industry, as it is at academia and industry.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Thank you to the Africa Tech Radio for having me. You guys are doing a great job, and we'd like to see more of you, right? We would like to, so you find a way to make yourself more visible. Maybe I would like to also introduce your radio to the centers of excellence so that you can have more conversation with other centers, and so that your radio will be a tool and a voice for us, our opinions, and to get also feedback from people. So it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.